Somewhere in this video, there's a nebula that moved while we were watching it. Something deep space is never supposed to do. There's a spider whose legs are 3 light years long, and there's a solar eclipse that no one on Earth could see. Over the past few months, we've received some of the strangest images of the universe ever taken. And one of them wasn't taken by a telescope at all. These are 15 of the best. Let's begin. Every orange strand in this image is a piece of a dead star. This is the Crab Nebula, 6,500 light years away, photographed by Hubble in sharper detail than ever before. The blue glow at the center isn't a star, it's something far stranger, and we'll get to it. But first, the explosion that created all of this, because we know exactly when it happened. People watched it happen. In the summer of 1054, astronomers in China recorded a new star near the constellation Taurus. So bright it was visible in broad daylight for over 3 weeks. Within 2 years, it faded away. What you're looking at is that same explosion nearly 1,000 years later, still unfolding. And that's exactly what makes this image special. In March 2026, Hubble released this new portrait 25 years after its first full image of the crab from 1999. The team reprocessed the old image, placed the two side by side, and measured exactly how far the wreckage had moved. The filaments are still racing outward at 5.5 million kilometers per hour. No other telescope has both the sharpness and the lifespan to catch a supernova in motion like this. The comparison also revealed something strange. Most supernova remnants are pushed outward by the original shockwave. Not this one. At the heart of the crab sits a pulsar, a city-sized neutron star left behind by the blast, and its magnetic field generates that blue glow that drives the expansion from within. Some filaments even cast shadows onto the glow, while some of the brightest cast none, meaning they sit on the nebula's far side. From a flat photograph, Hubble is mapping this explosion in 3 dimensions. A star is being born in this image, so is another one, slightly further along, and another, nearly finished. That's what makes this photograph remarkable. It captures young stars at every single stage of formation, all in one frame. It's the stellar equivalent of a school photo with every grade present, from newborns still wrapped in their birth clouds to nearly finished stars that have already cleared the dust around them. And it comes from the most familiar patch of sky there is. This is part of Orion A, the giant molecular cloud that contains the famous Orion Nebula. But Webb wasn't looking at the nebula this time. It looked behind it. Stretching back there, hidden by the nebula's glare, runs a long, cold filament of gas and dust. And this image, released in June 2026, is Webb's picture of the month, zooms into one section of it. Inside, the action is everywhere. The youngest objects are still buried so deep in dust that only their infrared glow escapes. Slightly older ones announce themselves violently, firing jets of material that slam into the surrounding cloud and light up as glowing shock waves. You can see those collisions scattered across the frame. The oldest have pushed their cocoons away entirely and shine in the open. Normally, astronomers piece this timeline together from scattered examples across the galaxy. A baby star here, a teenager there, under different conditions in different clouds. Here, Webb gets the entire sequence in one neighborhood, formed from the same material, one image, and the whole assembly line of stars like our sun, caught running. The star at the center of this image is throwing away its own body and pulses, and every ring you see around it is one of those pulses caught in light. This is the Cat's Eye Nebula, about 4,300 light-years away in the constellation Draco. And it's a preview of how stars like ours end, not in an explosion, but in slow, shuddering breaths, casting off layer after layer of gas until only the bare, burnt-out core remains. In March 2026, this old favorite got a completely new treatment because for the first time, two very different telescopes looked at it together. Hubble zoomed into the core, and its new image reveals concentric shells nested inside each other. Astronomers describe this structure as a fossil record. Each shell marks a separate episode of the star's shedding mass, so reading the rings from the inside out is reading the star's final chapters in order. The second telescope is the surprise. Euclid was built to map dark energy across billions of light years, but during its sky surveys, it swept up the Cat's Eye too, and its wide views shows what Hubble's close-up never could. The famous eye sits inside an enormous, faint hollow of glowing fragments, gas the star ejected in an even earlier era, before the central nebula existed, and shattered behind all of it, Euclid's frame is packed with distant galaxies. The Cat's Eye isn't just beautiful, it's the object that's telling us what a dying star leaves behind. These two images show this same planet, same rings, same storms, photographed just weeks apart, and yet they barely look alike. This is Saturn the way your eyes would see it, captured by Hubble invisible light, soft, banded, familiar. This is Saturn through Webb's infrared eyes, with rings blazing white and the poles turned a strange gray-green. Released together in March 2026, they form what NASA calls the most comprehensive view of Saturn ever assembled. The trick is wavelength. Different kinds of light come from different depths of Saturn's atmosphere, so switching between these images is like peeling the planet layer by layer. In Webb's view, the rings glow so fiercely because they're made of water ice, one of the most reflective materials in the solar system. Those gray-green poles are stranger. The color points to a haze of high-altitude particles that scientists still can't fully explain. And there's a quiet deadline written into these images. They caught Saturn in the closing months of its northern summer, sliding toward equinox. Saturn takes 29 years to orbit the Sun, so each season lasts over 7 Earth years. And with the equinox now past, the North Pole is slipping into a night that will last about 15 years. The view in these images is one no telescope will see again until the 2040s. Deep space isn't supposed to change in a human lifetime. Nebulae evolve over hundreds of thousands of years, so every image we've shown you so far is, for all practical purposes, a still photograph. This one is different. Hubble photographed this exact scene in 1997, came back in 2026 for its 36th anniversary, and when astronomers placed the two images side by side, things had moved. This is a close-up of the Trifid Nebula, a star-forming region 5,000 light-years away in Sagittarius. If it sounds familiar, it should. The Vera Rubin Observatory's debut image captured the entire Trifid in one frame, 56 light-years across. What Hubble has done is the opposite. It zoomed into a patch just 4 light-years wide and found a rust-colored cloud that NASA's own team nicknamed the Cosmic Sea Lemon, after the sea slug it resembles. A head, 2 horns, and a long rippling body drifting through a blue haze. That left horn is the part that moved. It's a jet of plasma, fired out in bursts over centuries by a newborn star buried inside the head, completely hidden by dust. Compare 1997 to 2026, and the jet has visibly pushed forward, which lets astronomers do something remarkable. Clock its speed directly and measure how much energy a baby star pumps into the cloud around it. Near the center of the frame, another jagged line shifted too, most likely a second jet from another hidden star. Everything you're seeing is temporary. Ultraviolet light from massive stars outside the frame is steadily dismantling these dust ridges. Give it a few million years, and the entire cloud will be gone. Only the stars it built will remain. Somewhere behind that dark band running across the middle of this image, a star is being born. We can't see it. The dust is too thick, but everything glowing around it tells us it's there. This is Dracula's Civito, roughly 1,000 light-years away, and it's the largest planet-forming disk ever found, nearly 400 billion miles across, 40 times wider than our entire solar system, all the way out to the Kuiper Belt. The name, in case you're wondering, is real. One of the researchers behind it is from Transylvania, Dracula's homeland. Another is from Uruguay, where the national dish is a sandwich called a Civito. Seen edge-on like this, with a dark dusty filling between two glowing buns, the disc genuinely earns it. But here's why it matters now. The team has just published its full analysis, and the disc turned out to be much stranger than anyone expected. Look at the top of the image. Wispy filaments of gas and dust climb high above the disc, like steam rising off the sandwich. Now look at the bottom. Nothing. A clean, sharp edge. Planet-forming disks aren't supposed to be this lopsided, and nobody is sure why this one is. The leading suspects are fresh material still raining down onto the disk from outside, or something nearby disturbing it. Either way, the researchers say it shows planet nurseries can be far more chaotic places than our textbook pictures suggested. And there's a lot to work with in that chaos. The disk holds somewhere between 10 and 30 times the mass of Jupiter in raw material, enough to build several giant planets. What you're looking at may be an oversized, messier version of our own solar system, 4.5 billion years before anyone was around to photograph it. It's time to leave our galaxy. Everything so far has been within a few thousand light-years of home. This is Messier 77, a spiral galaxy 45 million light-years away in the constellation Cetus. And the light blazing at its center is brighter than the rest of the galaxy combined. Billions of stars, outshone by a single point. It's so intense that it overwhelms even Webb's cameras. And it isn't a star, it's a feeding black hole. At the core of M77 sits a supermassive black hole weighing 8 million suns, and the galaxy's gas is spiraling into it at an enormous speed, crashing together and heating up until it radiates more energy than everything around it. The black hole itself emits nothing. What you're seeing is the glow of its last meal. Look at those long rays shooting out from the center. They're diffraction spikes, an artifact of Webb's own mirrors, and normally only stars are compact enough to produce them. M77's core is so small and so fierce that the telescope mistakes an entire galactic center for a single star. Webb's infrared view reveals one more hidden structure. Running through the middle of the galaxy is a glowing bar connecting the two spiral arms. That bar works like a conveyor belt, funneling gas toward the center. And it's the reason M77 churns out tens of suns worth of new stars every single year. Since its discovery in 1780, this object has been classified as a nebula, then a star cluster, then an ordinary galaxy. 2.5 centuries later, Webb finally shows what it really is: a galaxy being lit from inside by its own black hole. Those two beams are searchlights cutting through the fog, except the fog is stardust, and the searchlight is a dying star you cannot see. This is the Egg Nebula, about 1,000 light-years away, and in February 2026, Hubble gave us the clearest view of it ever taken. About 5,000 years ago, the star began periodically ejecting shells of gas and dust. Over the last 400 years, twin lobes of material have burst forth. The central star has wrapped itself in a cocoon of dust so thick that not a single ray comes out directly. The dust disks and bipolar lobes block the light from the star, creating a searchlight effect. The star's exposed core isn't yet hot enough to make the surrounding gas shine, and that places this object in one of the rarest phases in astronomy, a pre-planetary nebula. The brief in-between stage after a star sheds its layers, but before those layers light up. The phase lasts just a few thousand years, a blink on cosmic timescales, which is why the egg was the first ever discovered and remains the youngest and closest known. Look at the concentric arcs surrounding the cocoon, like ripples around a stone dropped in water. Each one is a shell of dust the star threw off in a separate convulsion, and their strange symmetry hints at something hidden, possibly unseen companion stars inside the cocoon. Give it a few thousand years, and this could look like the cat's eye from earlier in this video. What Hubble has caught here is the moment just before the lights come on. Think about what you just saw. You never actually saw the star. Not once. Everything in that image was a reflection, light bouncing off dust, and the picture you got depended entirely on what it bounced off of. Most of what we know about the world reaches us exactly the same way. The news we see is shaped by the outlets we follow and the region we live in. And science news gets even trickier, because headlines are often exaggerated or oversimplified for clicks. That's why I use Ground News. It's a platform that helps you cut through bias and hype by comparing how different media outlets are covering the same story. It shows you political slant, headline framing, and even what stories you might be missing entirely. When the first images from the Vera Rubin Observatory dropped, I wanted credible, unbiased coverage, and Ground News made that easy. The story was covered by 197 news sources, and I could instantly see that the bias distribution was almost equal. I could even check each outlet's factuality rating, verified by 3 independent media monitoring organizations. And the founder of Ground News is a former NASA engineer, so trustworthy science coverage is in its DNA. My favorite feature? The blind spot. It highlights stories disproportionately covered by one side of the political spectrum, so you always know what your feed is leaving out. And if you only care about science, technology, or space, interest pages filter the noise and show you just that. And for viewers of this channel, there's a special offer. For a limited time, you can subscribe and get 40% off the Unlimited Access Vantage plan by scanning this QR code on screen or heading to ground.news/SOU. The link is also in the description. Now, back to science. The light in this image is older than it looks. When it left this galaxy, dinosaurs had only just gone extinct on Earth. 65 million years later, it landed on Webb's mirrors, carrying this portrait of NGC 5134, a spiral galaxy in the constellation Virgo. And after the blazing core of M77, notice what's missing here. No overwhelming center, no fireworks. This is what a galaxy looks like when it's simply going about its business. But look closer, because the business itself is remarkable. 2 of Webb's instruments built this image together. One captures the near-infrared glow of stars, which forms the soft blue light filling the disk. The other detects warm dust, painted here in red. And that's where the action is. Waves and strands of dusty gas swirling around the core. Dense clumps, glowing orange, where it piles up. and dark holes where something has torn the dust apart. What you're watching is a galaxy recycling itself. Inside those red clouds, gas collapses to ignite new stars, slowly draining the galaxy's fuel supply. But the stars pay it back. The massive ones, more than 8 times our sun's mass, explode as supernovae and blast their material across hundreds of light years. Those torn holes in the dust are their signatures. Stars like our sun do it gently instead, swelling into red giants and shedding their outer layers into space. Either way, the gas returns, and the next generation of stars is built from the remains of the last. Every atom in your body went through this exact loop before Earth existed. The frame holds one more detail. The tiny smudges in the background are entire galaxies, hundreds of millions of light years further out. By studying nearby spirals like this one in detail, astronomers learn how to read those distant points of light. You've actually seen this image before, or at least a piece of it. When the Vera Rubin Observatory opened its eyes last year, its debut image of the Trifid and Lagoon nebulae went around the world. But that image was built from 678 exposures and roughly 2 trillion pixels, far too big for any screen to display. So astronomers have been doing the only sensible thing, cropping into corners of it, and tucked into one of those corners is a shockingly young star cluster named M21. These stars formed only about 6.5 million years ago. For comparison, that's roughly when our ancestors were splitting away from the chimpanzee lineage. The human family is older than every star in this image. A handful of blue giants dominate the cluster, but most of its members are small, dim stars, hundreds of them packed into a region just a couple of dozen light years wide. And here's the optical trick. Although M21 appears to sit right next to the Trifid Nebula, the two aren't connected at all. They simply fall along the same line of sight, a chance alignment between things separated by over 1,000 light years. What you're looking at is Westerlund 2, one of the most crowded places in the entire galaxy. Over 3,000 stars packed into a region just 6 to 13 light years across. For comparison, take that same volume of space around our sun, and you'd count the sun and just 14 more stars. Out here, that's normal. In there, it's a permanent rush hour. The cluster sits 20,000 light years away in the constellation Carina, buried inside a star-forming cloud called GUM-29. It is barely 1 to 2 million years old. Among those thousands of stars are some of the hottest, brightest, and most massive ones in the Milky Way, and their radiation is doing the sculpting you can see. Every sharp edge and glowing orange wall in this image is a cloud being carved up by starlight. If this object looks familiar, there's a reason. Hubble photographed Westerlund 2 for its 25th anniversary back in 2015. But Webb's new infrared view did something Hubble never could. For the first time, it picked out the cluster's entire population of brown dwarfs. These are failed stars, objects that form like stars, but never got massive enough to ignite. And Webb spotted ones just 10 times the mass of Jupiter, glowing faintly among 3,000 blazing neighbors. It also found hundreds of newborn stars, still wrapped in disks of gas and dust. Planetary systems caught mid-construction in one of the harshest environments imaginable. Which raises a question: if planets can form here, where can't they? If you could rise above the Milky Way and look straight down, this is roughly what you'd see. This is Messier 101, the Pinwheel Galaxy, 25 million light years away, and is one of the closest galaxies that happens to face us dead on. No tilt, no edge, just the full spiral laid out flat like a blueprint, except calling it a mirror of our galaxy undersells it. The pinwheel is nearly twice the Milky Way size, around 170,000 light-years across, and holds roughly 1 trillion stars. In March 2026, Hubble and Webb teamed up to zoom in on its core, and the division of labor between them is the story of the image. Hubble contributed ultraviolet, visible, and near-infrared light, which picks out the stars themselves, from blazing young giants to the old yellow population crowding the center. Webb's infrared vision adds those orange-brown clouds threading between the stars. Combined, they give astronomers a census: which stars live where, how old they are, and how this enormous spiral organized itself. Every pink patch you can see is a stellar nursery, and the pinwheel is packed with thousands of them. There's a charming reason this image exists at all. Every March, amateur astronomers attempt the Messier Marathon, racing to spot all 110 objects in Messier's catalog in a single night. In 2026, Hubble ran its own version, and this was one of the prizes. And one last detail for the perfectionists: the pinwheel isn't actually perfect. Look closely, and the spiral is slightly lopsided, its core nudged off-center, because the gravity of its smaller companion galaxies keeps tugging at its arms. Almost every star in this image is older than the Sun, older than the Earth, older than anything else in this video. This is Messier 10. Hundreds of thousands of stars packed into a gravitationally bound swarm, most of them well over 10 billion years old. They formed when the Milky Way itself was still under construction, and as part of its 2026 Messier Marathon, Hubble released a new ultraviolet image of this cluster's core that contains a genuine puzzle. Look at the blue stars scattered through the center. They shouldn't exist. Blue means hot, and hot means massive, and massive stars burn out fast, within a few 100 million years. In a cluster this ancient, every star like that should have died billions of years ago. Yet there they are, glowing in ultraviolet, like fresh paint on an antique. And their secret is theft. The core of a globular cluster is one of the most crowded places in the galaxy, with stars packed thousands of times more densely than in our own neighborhood. Squeeze ancient stars that close together, and strange things happen. Some siphon fuel from a close companion, others collide and merge outright. Either way, the result is a reborn star, heavier and hotter than before. Masquerading as young, they aren't survivors, they're stars wearing stolen youth. If this is a spider, each of its legs is 3 light-years long. This is the Red Spider Nebula, about 12,400 light-years away in Sagittarius, and Webb's image is the first to capture those legs in full. They aren't open streamers of gas, as older images suggested, but closed, sealed bubbles, each one inflated over thousands of years by gas blasting out of the nebula's center. 2 balloons, blown up from the inside, each stretching further than the distance from our Sun to the nearest star. The engine doing the blowing sits at the pinched waist of the hourglass. This is a star like our Sun, in its final act. It swelled into a red giant, shed its outer layers, and exposed its bare core, whose ultraviolet radiation now makes all that cast-off gas glow. Earlier in this video, the Egg Nebula showed us the moment just before this stage begins. The Red Spider is the stage at full power, and its central star is one of the hottest white dwarfs ever observed. And there may be more down there. That narrow waist and those wide symmetric lobes are the classic signature of 2 stars, not one. A hidden companion, never directly seen, may be the sculptor of this entire shape. A dying star, a suspected secret partner, and 2 bubbles the size of star systems. That's not a bad way to go. Every image in this video so far was taken by a machine. This one was taken by a person, holding a camera, floating at a window. And behind that camera were 4 humans who were, at that moment, farther from home than anyone in history. On April 6, 2026, as Orion swung around the far side of the moon, the sun slipped behind the lunar disk, and the crew fell into shadow. A total solar eclipse, watched from space. On Earth, totality never lasts more than about 7 minutes. Theirs lasted 54. Look at what one frame holds. The moon, backlit, ringed by the sun's corona. The edge of the Orion spacecraft in the corner. The moon's left edge glowing slightly brighter than the rest. And that detail is quietly the best one. It's Earthshine. Sunlight bouncing off Earth and brushing the lunar surface. Our planet in this photo has a glow. And that bright point of light in the corner? That's Venus, the hottest planet in the solar system. 8 billion people missed this eclipse. 4 saw it. And they did what explorers have always done. They brought it back for the rest of us. 15 images, dying stars, newborn worlds, galaxies lit from within, and at the very end, 4 people watching the sun slip behind the moon. Every one of these pictures say the same thing. The universe is stranger and richer than we expected. All we have to do is keep looking. So thanks for watching, and thanks to Ground News for sponsoring this video. If you're tired of clickbait headlines or just want the real story, especially in science, scan this QR code or head to the link ground.news/SOU given in the description. You'll get 40% off the Vantage plan and see the news like you see the universe. Clearly.